Welcome back. Today we're making these tender, fluffy, and absolutely delicious carrot cake cinnamon rolls. It really does taste just like a carrot cake and a cinnamon roll had a baby. Whenever I make cinnamon rolls, I like to start with my filling first just to get that step out of the way. To make our filling, we're combining light brown sugar, cornstarch. I know this sounds a little weird, but it helps keep the filling inside the cinnamon rolls and prevents it kind of from oozing out as they bake. All of our warm spices and some salts. Now our warm spices include cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and allspice. And now the real fun begins. It's time to start working on our carrot cake cinnamon roll dough. When making this dough, the first thing I like to do is grate my carrots. I'm kind of crazy and I love to grate them on a microplane grater. I think it gives them a really wonderful texture and it helps them incorporate so much more easily into the dough. However, if you don't have a microplane on hand or you don't want to go through the effort of grinding them to that fine of a shred, you can also use just regular shredded carrots that you can get at the grocery store, or you can use a regular cheese grater. Regardless of what way you do, if you freshly grate them, make sure that you use a cheesecloth or a paper towel to kind of wring out the moisture. If you don't, you're going to be incorporating so much extra water into your dough, it's going to make it really sticky and a lot more difficult to handle, and that's going to cause you to add way more flour than you would otherwise, which is going to make your dough a lot less tender and fluffy. Next, we're combining our dry ingredients into the bowl of our stand mixer, and this includes our all-purpose flour, our instant or rapid yeast, and our salt. If you can't find instant or rapid rise yeast, you can also use active yeast. It just takes a lot longer to rise and you need to activate it with a little bit of warm water before adding it into your dough, so keep that in mind. Once those are combined, we're gonna add our whole milk, our butter, and our sugar into a medium-sized bowl. We're just gonna pop that in the microwave until the butter has melted down and the mixture is warm to the touch. Now, it's important that you want this to feel kind of like bath water. It should be warm to the touch, but not hot. If it's hot, you can kill your yeast, which is not what we're after. We want these cinnamon rolls to be so fluffy and tender. So make sure that it is just nice and warm, not hot. And then we're gonna pour it into our dry ingredients. We're gonna mix this until the liquids are incorporated and the dough should start to look sticky. Now, I'm making my dough today with a stand mixer and a dough hook, but you can definitely make this by hand if you don't have a stand mixer at home, don't worry. It takes a little bit longer and requires a little bit extra elbow grease, but it actually works great because as you're kneading by hand, you can really see the texture of the dough change so you know when it's ready. Once those wet ingredients are incorporated, it's time to add in those beautiful shredded carrots. We're gonna dump those in and mix on a medium speed until those carrots are incorporated throughout all of the dough. Then it's time for the last ingredient, 1 large egg. We're gonna mix that in on a low speed to get it incorporated so it doesn't kind of like slosh out of your bowl. And then we're gonna increase the speed and continue to let the dough mix for a couple minutes. This can vary based on the speed that you're mixing at, the size of your mixer, and or if you're doing this by hand. But you wanna continue to mix until the dough starts to get kind of an elastic look to it. If you're finding that your dough still looks really sticky, you're gonna add in a little bit more all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon at a time. The amount that you have to add can vary a ton based on the amount of moisture that was in your carrots, the type of carrots you're using. It should start to pull away from the sides of the bowl. It's okay if it's still kind of sticking at the bottom of the bowl, but the really telltale sign that I like to go by when I'm trying to figure out if my dough is ready is that it is tacky but not sticky. This means you can tap the dough with your finger and pull away and you feel it stick a little bit to your finger, but there is no residue on there. That is my favorite way to know if my dough is ready. Once our dough is ready to go, we're gonna cover it and set it aside for 10 to 20 minutes. Once our dough has rested, we are going to roll out our dough on a floured counter. I like to roll mine out to about 14 by 18 inches, and then we're gonna brush on our room temperature butter. Now you wanna cover the entire dough except for a 1/2 inch strip at the top because we're gonna use that area to kind of seal the log together once the cinnamon rolls are rolled up. Next, we're topping this with our brown sugar spiced mixture. We're gonna just sprinkle this over that buttered section and try to get it as nice and even as possible so that every bite is really packed with that delicious flavor. The next ingredient is optional, but I love adding in some toasted chopped pecans. It gives these cinnamon rolls a wonderful bit of texture and it also adds to the depth of flavor. Then it's time to roll our cinnamon rolls up. I like to add a little bit of water along that seam that we didn't add butter to, so that way the dough kind of sticks together and it keeps the cinnamon rolls nice and tight and sealed in. And then it's time to whip out the dental floss. Now I know you might not be expecting this, but dental floss works so incredibly well at cutting cinnamon rolls. It gives you such nice, clean, even cuts, so I highly recommend using it. You can also use a knife if you don't have any on hand, but floss really, I think works best. So we're gonna cut our cinnamon roll into 12 even pieces. We're then gonna place them in a 9 by 13 inch rectangular baking dish, and we're gonna set them aside to proof. And I let them sit in there for about 20 to 30 minutes until they look nice and puffy. Once the oven is ready to go, we bake our cinnamon rolls for about 26 to 32 minutes, or until they're nice and golden brown. If you know that your oven has hot spots, be sure to rotate the cinnamon rolls halfway through so that way they bake evenly. While our cinnamon rolls bake and cool, we're gonna whip up our cream cheese frosting. Now you can mix this with a hand mixer or a whisk if your cream cheese is soft enough, and you're just gonna keep mixing until your frosting is nice and smooth. Now you can add your frosting to your cinnamon rolls right when they come out of the oven if you're going for a really melty kind of gooey vibe, which is delicious. I usually like to try to wait, if I can, like 20 minutes to add it so that the frosting keeps some of its structure, but this is totally your call. And just like that, our carrot cake cinnamon rolls are ready to be enjoyed. I hope that you guys enjoy this recipe as much as I do. I had so much fun making these. If you want to make them at home, you can find the recipe on chellsweets.com, or I'll include it in the video description below. Thank you so much for watching, you guys, and until next time, happy baking!